What's up, guys? It's James from Lucrative MMA. I'm back to do another recap for you. Today, we're going to be recapping the Bellator 255 card. Obviously, we didn't have any UFC this weekend, but we still had Bellator to look forward to. And I was very much looking forward to this card. And it turned out to be a decent card. Possibly a little bit underwhelming, but at the end of the day, these Bellator cards, there's a lot of mismatches on the card, and there's not too many great wars a lot of the time, back and forth fight, because there is so many mismatches. But with mismatches, what you do get to see is a certain fighter showcase their skills. So we definitely saw that. Magomedov comes to mind. Pitbull, who was probably in one of the hardest fights on the card, the most competitive matchups. He was able to showcase his skills with a first round domination. Sorry about that. That's just a ghost. It's actually the wind. Damn, that scared me there. So, yeah, I mean, it was a decent card, maybe a little bit underwhelming, but look, I was just happy to have some fights on. I was happy to have some fights to bet on. And I was happy to, once again, have another winning night and keep building that bankroll for the year. We're in over 20 units of profit this year now. So, very happy with that. And I was very happy with the way Bellator 255 turned out in regards to betting. And I'll go over all my bets. So as we always do every week, I will recap the whole card, not just from a fight and stylistic perspective. Obviously, I'll talk about that mainly, but I also will go over the bets because this is a betting channel at the end of the day. I'm a sports bettor and I want to make money on MMA as well as actually watching it, right? I prefer to make money on it than only watch it. So I'll be talking about the fight or the fights from a betting perspective, as well as the actual fight. So we'll get into the first fight of the night, which was this fight, Jordan Newman versus Branko Busic. Talk about Bellator, talk about mismatches. This definitely seemed like a mismatch when it was happening, but I do have a little bit of a hot take on this, and I'll get into it. So this was my first bet on the card, first fight on the card. I played the plus 290 underdog, Branko Busic here, right? So when I played him, he was plus 290. We beat the closing line there, as we always do. One of the main things you want to do when you're sports betting is beat the closing line. There's tons of articles. There was an article I shared on my Twitter the other day, probably about a week ago now, if you want to go back through my Twitter. And it was just a closing line article. It basically said that one of the main predictors of long-term success in sports betting is beating the closing line, right? So you want to always beat the closing line. And sometimes if your bets even, if they lose, but you beat the closing line, at least you did half of your job, right? You didn't win the bet, but you beat the closing line, which, as I said, is a long-term predictor of success. And we always beat the closing line. Actually, I think we had about 8 bets on this card, and we beat the closing line on every single bet. So extremely happy with that, And then we ended up profiting, right? So there's definitely a correlation between the two. It's been documented in sports betting for the last 30 years since sports betting has, existed. Beating the closing line is a long-term predictor of success. In MMA, it's slightly different, but at the end of the day, it's still a predictor of success. So, that was just a little rant there. But anyway, Branko Busic. So I believe I had 0.7 units on Branko Busic to win, right? He got dominated. So Jordan Newman was a 2-0 fighter. He's now obviously 3-0, and he was coming up against the 2-1 Branko. Branko should have been 3-1. He did get a no contest in a fight that he won via knockout because he was taking some form of steroids, some illegal substance. I'm not sure exactly what it was. So he was coming off a steroid suspension here. And it's pretty funny because this fight was at middleweight, right? But Branko has fought at heavyweight and light heavyweight before. So this was his middleweight debut, I believe. And it's just funny because he got done for steroids at light heavyweight. And then when he comes back from his steroid suspension, he's probably off steroids and he moves down to middleweight, So he's just lost like 20, 30 pounds because he stops taking illegal substances, I mean, that's what you would assume. Who knows the reason he moved down? Maybe he just felt better at that weight. I will say on the scales, he looked good at that weight. He looked pretty trim at that weight. He looked in decent shape, Jordan Newman was able to take him down. He couldn't take him down in the first round. And that's where my hot take comes in. And I will mention it in a minute. But when he did get him on the ground, absolutely run through him. You could tell that Jordan Newman was a high-level wrestler when he was on top. You couldn't necessarily tell he was a high-level wrestler when he was trying to get him down because he couldn't get him down. But Branko ended up slipping over and Jordan jumped on top of him and just ran through him on the ground, and then ended up taking him down the next round and stopping him. So I guess it was a bad bet, right? Because he got completely run through. But this is my hot take, because shout out to Z's MMA. I watched his stream, right? I watched the replay of it, and you know, he was really disappointed in this bet, because he also had this bet, and he was really disappointed in himself, saying that he bet on a bad fighter. He got ran through. I don't agree with him that it was such a bad bet, because the angle, look, everyone probably who bet Branko come at it at a different angle, right? Z did say that he only came at it from one angle, which was Jordan Newman gasses in round 3. I came at it from multiple angles. One angle was the Jordan Newman gassing angle. Another angle was Branko was better on the feet, better in boxing range, which I believe was shown in them 3 minutes the fight was on the feet. And then another angle I came at it was Jordan Newman's obviously inexperienced, more inexperienced than Branko. And another angle I came at it was Tyrell Fortune couldn't get takedowns on Branko, so I wasn't expecting Jordan Newman to get takedowns. Now, the reason I don't hate this bet at all, to be honest, even though he got absolutely rammed through, and this is why it may be a little bit of a hot take, because he did get rammed through, but I still don't hate the bet. It's because what I predicted happened in the first 3 minutes. So I didn't think Jordan, or I was taking the shot on a plus 290, right, that Jordan Newman may not be able to get the takedowns on Branko. And if he doesn't get the takedowns, then how's the fight going to transpire? He couldn't get the takedowns. He shot multiple takedowns in that first round, and he couldn't get them. And to go and rewatch the fight, he couldn't get the takedowns, and he was getting, what's the word? He was getting discouraged by that, right? You could tell in his body language, in his face, he was like, you know, he took a couple deep breaths. He was like, damn, this dude's not going down. You know, like I'm not able to take him down. Branko was getting a little bit flowy out there. He started showboating a little bit. Not much, not over the top, but he started showboating. He was definitely finding his feet. Then there was a weird exchange, right? So the reason why I don't hate this bet is because my prediction on Jordan Newman possibly not being able to get takedowns on Branko, which was, in my opinion, his only path to victory, as we saw, in my opinion, we saw it in the fight. That prediction was correct, right? He wasn't able to get takedowns. When he got the fight to the floor, it was because Branko slipped. It was a weird exchange. It looked like Branko actually dropped Jordan Newman, but I don't think he did. I think he slipped, and then Branko kind of just flopped to his back somehow. It was a very weird exchange. Jordan did not get a takedown on Branko in that first round. Branko slipped. Jordan jumps on top of him. When he's on top of him, okay, game over. He put a can of arse whooping on Branko. He hurt him badly in that first round, right? And then you could see him go back to his stall at the end of the first round, and he looked like he was done. His eye was all beat up. And coming out to that second round, he looked like he half didn't want to be in the fight. Jordan was able to get a takedown in the second round because of how beat up Branko was, and then he finished it shortly after. So that's the reason. I do not hate this bet at all, man. My prediction on Jordan not being able to get the takedowns is correct, and I believe that if Jordan wasn't able to get the fight to the ground from that slip, like if they fight 100 times, Branko doesn't always slip in that first round, right? And if he doesn't slip, then what happens? Jordan was getting caught with that check left hook a lot of times. And yeah, look, I'm not saying it's a good bet. I'm not out here saying it's a good bet. But the reason I'm making all these points is to say that I don't hate the bet, man. Plus 290. That's the thing, guys. You have to look at the odds range you're getting, right? Because at the end of the day, I'm not betting on Branko. I'm betting on the odds. So plus 290 is about a 25% chance of him winning the fight, right? And I feel like if they fought 100 times, he probably wins 25 times. I mean, he was clearly better on the feet. It wasn't ridiculously a ridiculous disparity on the feet, but I do think that he was better on the feet. And I do think that I saw, and it's proven that he could stop Jordan's takedowns. So how many times does weird things happen where he falls to the floor, or like Jordan is able to get one of them takedowns, or Jordan jumps on his back? Like, how many times? I don't know if it's over 75 times, guys. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's a lot of times, right? And the thing is that Branko doesn't slow down. And if Jordan wasn't able to put a beating on him, Jordan slows down. We've seen it before. So, man, plus 290. I'm telling you, I'll make that bet again. I know it didn't look good because he got absolutely mollywopped on the floor, but I'm telling you, we can't take too much away from one iteration of a fight, right? I posted a tweet the other day saying we can't take too much out of one iteration of a fight. So the way I back this up, you can check my Twitter. I basically said that who was I talking about? I was talking about Mike Grundy versus Movsar Evloev, right? When Evloev mopped the floor with Mike Grundy over 3 rounds. And I said that if Mike Grundy gets that submission on Evloev in the first round, then everyone's going to shit on that Evloev bet at minus 175. Because Mike Grundy have Movsar Evloev in a deep, deep guillotine. I believe it was a guillotine or a das. It was some headlock series choke, right? And it was very deep. And Movsar was able to get out of that, right? But if he didn't get out of that, like if they fight 100 times and Grundy gets him in that choke, let's say 10 times, Evloev's not going to get out every single time, right? Evloev got out that time that we saw, but he's not going to get out every single time. Now, I have seen Evloev been put in deep chokes after that fight, so maybe he would get out every single time because his choke defense seems to be amazing. But I'm just saying that there's iterations of that fight. Like if they fight 100 times, Grundy gets the tap there, right? And if he does, everyone comes on Twitter. Everyone's like, oh, that was a shit bet on Evloev. Grundy, great value. But in reality, it might not be. If they fight 100 times, that doesn't happen. And in sports betting, we're not betting on one outcome. We're betting on numbers, which means there's a probability behind that number, which means that whatever the probability is, we're betting on the probability to be wrong, basically. I hope you understand what I'm saying. So, yeah, you can't take too much from one iteration of a fight. Just because Jordan Newman ran through him this time, from what we saw there, I was happy with my read, man. I read that Branko would be able to defend the takedowns and was better on the feet. At plus 300, plus 290, I mean, I am happy with it. But it wasn't a good look. It wasn't a good look, right? There's a bet later on in the card that I'm not happy with. So it's not like I'm just trying to justify my bet here, because I'm going to tell you about a bet that I had that I don't like. And I think it was a bad bet, right? And it was actually at chalk odds. So it's all about the number. It's not about the actual fight most of the time, all right? Obviously, it's a little bit about the fight, but it's mainly about the number. It really is. And it's hard to grasp that concept, right? Especially when you're watching it. You're like, oh, shit, I bet on Branko. He's a bad fighter. But you have to think. I heard MMA Lock of the Night. Shout out to Manpree. I heard him talk about this. Think macro, not micro. Don't think about the specific matchup. Think about macro. Think about 100 matchups of them guys, right? Anyway, I just wanted to get that off my chest. That was something I've been thinking about since the fight happened. And I guess just since I saw Z like really disappointed with himself in that bet. But again, we was coming at it from different angles. So if he's just fading the one angle, then all good. But I had 4 or 5 reads on that fight, and a couple of them were correct. So anyway, the next fight we have is Roman Farada versus Trevor Goody. Shout out to Bleed MMA. He's like Trevor Goody wasn't so goody, and he didn't look that goody, man. I mean, he had a nice looking mullet, but yeah, he got dominated there. He got dropped about 3 or 4 times, and then the referee finally waved it off. I think it could have been waved off probably the second time he got dropped, but the referee gave him another chance. And I mean, there's not much to say about this fight. I didn't have any bets on it. Roman Farada was a minus 500 favorite, and yeah, he ran through Trevor Goody there. So I really have not much to say about that fight. I mean, he did what he was meant to do. The next fight was Jose Augusto. Let's just call him Jose Augusto versus Jonathan Wilson. Yeah, so I know Rockstar Z's MMA had a bet on this one. Shout out to you. To be honest, I'm going to be completely honest. I didn't even look into tape for this fight because I already locked in all my Bellator bets when this happened. And this was announced pretty late. This was announced like a day or two before Bellator actually got underway. So I just didn't really have time to look into this fight. I had already had about 10, 15 units on the line for Bellator, was happy with my bets, and was already taping the future UFC. So I didn't look into this. In hindsight, maybe I should have, because Z was pretty heavy. I mean, he wasn't really heavy in unit size, I would say. I think he had like a 0.5 unit, 1.5 units on it, which is a decent bet for him. But I remember him, he was pretty confident in Jose Augusto, right? So maybe I should have found that out and then like done my research into it, but I didn't. But yeah, Augusto dominated Jonathan Wilson there, got him to the ground, and you just pummeled him and just got a first round stoppage. So definitely a great bet. Probably the best bet of the card. Maybe I'll change that as I go on, but I would say that's probably the best bet of the card. So whoever had that, I don't think a lot of people did. I don't think a lot of people bet this fight in general. I didn't see anyone cash this except for Z. So I would say it's probably the best bet of the card because, I mean, he was like a -110 when it went off. I think he might have been even money or something. And, I mean, just complete domination, really. So, yeah, great bet there. Great bet. And then the next fight, Chris Gonzalez versus Roger Herter. So this was the second bet of the card for me. I laid the chalk on Chris Gonzalez. He was -260 when I bet him. I put 2.6 units to win 1 unit on him. And feel like maybe I should have gone even harder, you know, but like I had already had quite a few bets on the card and I didn't. But Chris Gonzalez absolutely runs through Roger Herter, gets a 10-8 round in that first round. I thought he could have stopped it in the first round, and then he ends up stopping it because Roger Herter taps to strikes in the third round. So complete domination by Chris Gonzalez there. He moves to 6-0. It was quite sad to see Roger tap to strikes because, you know, he's, I wouldn't say MMA legend. I don't know what you would say, but he's very well known in the MMA community. He's been around for a long time. At one point in his career was, you know, a very, very good fighter. He had a great record, but, you know, he's just past it now. And when I bet on this fight, I didn't bet on it because I was like, yeah, Chris Gonzalez is such a great fighter. I bet on it because I was like, Roger Herter is not such a great fighter. So one of my granddad was a sports bettor like me as well, right? And he won a hell of a lot of money betting on greyhound racing and horse racing, but he also lost a hell of a lot of money. He lost houses. He lost a lot of stuff, right? That's kind of who introduced me to the sports betting industry. I've been around the industry my whole life because my granddad owned greyhounds, right? So I've been around it my whole life. And one of the jewels I took from him was he always told me to bet to lose, right? Bet to lose. And basically what that means and how you will understand it is it means fade people, right? So he used to talk about fading horses and fading dogs that were favorites, right? He was saying bet them to lose. And you can actually do that now on the exchange markets. You can bet on someone to lose, right? Or in horse racing and dog racing, you can bet on a dog or a horse to not win, right? And that's basically what he was saying. He was saying, don't necessarily always bet on someone because you think they're going to win. Bet on a person who you know is going to lose, man. They're just not good anymore. They haven't got it, right? They're not going to win, but they still might be, you know, a favorite, or they still might be, at least the odds might not be too crazy. Like Chris Gonzalez, in hindsight, looked -4, -500 there, right? So this was a bet on Roger Herter to lose, right? I bet to lose. And obviously you still look into the opponent. So I did look into Chris Gonzalez. He looked decent. Chris Gonzalez, he looked slick on the feet, even though he did not look slick in that fight. I think he was half gassed during the stand-up exchanges in the third round during that fight because he looked pretty awful on the feet, to be honest, compared to what I've seen him looking like on the regional scene. But yeah, it didn't matter because the takedowns were there. The takedowns were there easily. Roger has nothing off his back, which is funny because he's kind of known as a jiu-jitsu fighter when he came in the game, if I'm not incorrect. He actually started with jiu-jitsu, then moved to wrestling, then moved to striking. So, you know, it was kind of strange to see him have absolutely nothing off his back. And we saw that in his last fight, right? And this was a complete fade on Roger, man. So I was happy I laid the chalk there, -260, won myself a unit, put me back in profit on the night on my second bet. And it brought me on to one of the big bets I had on the card, which was the next fight in Khalid Murtazaliev, however you pronounce that, versus Fabio Aguiar, however you pronounce that. So both of these guys had a decent record. Fabio was 17-1 coming in. Khalid was 15-2 coming in. Both of them was having long layoffs. And I'm not going to lie, this bet was a little bit more sweaty than I wanted it to be. I think the price I got it at, it was just about value. So I got it at -185. I sent it to me and my members at -185. It was available. It was a stable line on all books. Of course, I never tip any lines to my members that you can't bet yourself, right? So it was minus 185, stable line at the time I tipped it. And I think, I mean, that's justifiable. You can say he's minus 200 for sure. You can say he wins that fight 66% of the time. I'm pretty sure you can say that. So you can say he wins that fight around 70%. I mean, it was close, but it was clear, right? So a lot of people, they get a bit misconstrued in what a close fight means. Just because it was a close fight, it doesn't mean like the bet was bad or something, right? Because that's always the lean, right? Because that's how you feel. If you're watching a fight and it's sweaty and you're like, oh my God, this is going to be close. Am I going to win? But if your fighter clearly wins 2 rounds, is it really like, just because it was close, does it mean that it was a bad bet? Obviously, it depends on the price. Because as I said during the first fight I was breaking down, we're betting on numbers, we're betting on prices, we're not betting on fighters, right? Obviously, we are betting on fighters, but you know what I'm saying. So it was a clear win from Khalid. I mean, when it was going to the judges' scorecards, I 100% knew that. I mean, you never 100% know with these judges, but, you know, I 99% knew that we had the decision. I wasn't worried at all. You know, I had no stress. I wasn't sitting up, waiting for the decision. I was like, yeah, sweet. We won that 2-1 at least. So, yeah, but I'm not going to say it's a great bet at all, man. I mean, like, I think he just justified the line I got him at. I think if you got in over minus 200, it's not really a great bet because it did look like there was iterations of that fight where Fabio could probably just press the takedowns consistently and end up winning. But my whole read on this fight, and I'll break down my bet, of course, as I always do. My whole read on this fight was that Khalid would be able to dominate the offensive grappling situations. The thing is, he didn't shoot a takedown until 7 minutes into the fight. That's halfway through a 15-minute fight. So if you're only going to start shooting takedowns in the second half of the fight, I wouldn't have bet on you, right? If someone told me before that Khalid won't shoot a takedown until 7 minutes, I wouldn't have bet on Khalid there. So one of the hardest things, and I tweeted about this, one of the hardest things in sports betting, in MMA betting, I should say, is that it's very hard to predict game plans, right? That's why we like, as sports bettors, as MMA bettors, we like betting on people like Bilal Muhammad. You know, we like betting on people like Khabib Nurmagomedov, like Tatiana Suarez, Tatiana Nurmagomedov, because these people stick to game plans. You know what you're getting with them. Gregor Gillespie, you don't have to fuck about. Like, when fighters just don't stick to game plans, one of the biggest people that I don't like betting on anymore is Andre Fili, because his IQ is just not there, right? He just doesn't really know. He doesn't stick to a good game plan that's going to win him the fight. Sometimes he can just be stupid in there. And if I didn't know that Khalid wasn't going to shoot a takedown, I wouldn't have bet on him. But anyway, the bet cashed. As I said, I believe there's value up to minus 200. Anything past that, it's not that much value anymore, in my opinion. I still think we got value. We absolutely smashed the closing line. And yeah, I was happy enough with that bet, but it was definitely sweaty. And I believe we only just got a little bit of value there. So not overly happy with that bet. Not because of the skill set, really, because I believe that offensive grappling was completely dominant. When you saw Murtazaliev offensively grappling Aguiar, he was a level above, a whole level above. It was easy. It was hard because Aguiar is very strong and stuff, but it was super clear who was going to win that fight once the offensive grappling started, right? But if I didn't know that wouldn't start for 7 minutes, I wouldn't have bet it. So I'm not really happy with the IQ there. And obviously, when you're watching fights, when you're doing research, when you're doing tape study, what you want to do is you want to look at the IQ of the dude as well. That's what you're betting on, right? I'm not just betting on the skill set. I'm also betting on your IQ. I'm betting how well you're going to stick to a game plan. So I'm not blaming his IQ for my bet. I'm blaming my bet on myself for not realizing that his IQ wasn't at the level as where I thought it was, right? So that's a bad read from me, because I did think it would be easy for him to shoot offensive takedowns. I just thought he'd do it. He didn't do it for 7 minutes. Then he did it consistently for the next 7 minutes. But you get what I'm trying to say. Yeah. The next fight, I had another bet. This was Mandel Nello versus Ricardo Sanchez. This was the most flawless performance of the night, no doubt. Mandel Nello destroyed Ricardo and got him out of there in round 1. exactly like I predicted on my breakdown. I said he would destroy him and get him out of there. And he did do that. He's a Montreal fighter. He fights very long, very rangy. He's a very good striker. And he's going to look really good against an opponent like Ricardo Sanchez, right? He's going to look really good against him. And I knew that. He got a first round stoppage. And I put him in a parlay. I got him a minus 260. I think he went off at like minus 280 or something. So again, happy with that bet. And yeah, not much to say. Anyone who done this bet, it was obviously value, clear value, because he just completely walked through him. It was beautiful to watch, Anytime someone puts on a striking clinic like that, it's absolutely beautiful to watch. So I was happy to cash that bet. That's another bet that I cashed on the night. It was in a parlay which cashed. So yeah, it was a good night. And then this fight, this was the craziest line of all time in MMA. I mean, I think Magomedov was like minus 3,000 in some books by the time it went off. I actually parlayed Magomedov at minus 1,000, right? And it sounds a bit weird, but I think I got value on that bet. At the end of the day, guys, it's just about value. Fuck the lines. It don't matter what line you get, right? People will tell you that you should only bet underdogs. Some people will tell you that you should bet favorites because they're more likely to win. Man, there's so much different rhetoric in this game. At the end of the day, listen to people that are winning. Listen to people that are winning long term. Listen to people that are winning long term that have third-party track records. And that's not singular things. They all have to be in line, right? If someone tells you they're winning, ask for their third-party track record. Check it. Once you check it's long term. Anyone can go on a hot streak. And then if all them things check out, then listen to what they have to say. And also understand that everyone's biased to their own way of betting, right? So people can win in MMA betting multiple different ways, right? There's people that only bet straight picks. There's people that only bet totals, for fuck's sake. There's people that mostly bet totals. There's people that only bet props. I mean, there's multiple ways to make money in MMA betting, but there's only certain ways that are sustainable long term, even though there is multiple ways there. And also, if you want to follow someone that is a handicapper that's betting on MMA, make sure that the way they bet is sustainable for you as well. There's people that are winning like hundreds of units out there a year, but they're betting 40, 50 units a card. I mean, if you join them, right, and you lose, if they lose 2 cards in a row, your whole bankroll is wiped out, guys. If my whole bankroll was wiped out in 2 cards, I mean, I don't know how much these guys are betting per unit, but it's not a lot of money, because if you was betting the money I'm betting, which is not even crazy, it's $200 a unit right now, right? If I lost my whole bankroll in two cards, I don't know what I'd do, man. I'd probably quit betting. I mean, I wouldn't have a bankroll, so I'd have to. So you have to be careful with that, right? But that was a bit of a segue. I don't know why I went off into there, but back to the fight. Magomedov, right? He completely dominated CJ Hamilton. I think I got value at minus 1,000. Not heaps of value, but I got about a 5% edge on the bookies there. I give about 5%, right? Even though it should be way less. It should be like 3%. But I give about a 5% buffer for crazy things to happen in MMA, like fingers to get ripped off in a cage, illegal strikes, right? Stuff like that. I give that about a 5% chance of happening. And I gave CJ Hamilton about a 2% chance of winning. So 2 plus 5 is 7%. So I'm capping the Magomedov at about 93%. But in reality, I said it should be like 3% for the weird stuff to happen. So I'm really capping Magomedov about 95%, So yeah, I bet him there just in a parlay with Nello, and, that cashed. Yeah, easy cash there. Magomedov, one of the best bantamweights in the world right now. The only man to defeat Peter Yan. Peter Yan is the only man to defeat him. And I do want to see him in the UFC one day. Obviously, I want to see him fight for that belt first, which he will do soon. I believe his next fight or the fight after that will most certainly be a title shot. Probably the fight after that. They probably want to showcase him a little bit more, get him a little bit more hype. But he's the real deal, man. He looks like an evil Bond villain. And, man, he'd probably fuck up James Bond, to be honest. So, I mean, look at this dude. Look at this evil guy, man. Can you see him? This guy looks evil. Even there, like, you don't look that evil, but... Anyway, I want to fight that dude, man. and he's like half my size. So look, that was a good way to close off the prelims. Another win for me and a great showcase. You know, that's why they put him there, just to close off the prelims. And then now we're gonna go straight to the main card, but we're not gonna go to this fight. Come on, Bellator. It's not the first fight. This was the first fight, and this was a bad bet from me, guys. This is the bad bet I had on the card. Maybe Sanchez is a bad bet. I don't know. I'll get into that in a minute. But, you know, I was talking about Branco earlier, right? And I went quite in depth about why I'm not unhappy with that bet. But I am unhappy with this bet, right? So Alejandro Lara versus Kana Watanabe. Some Japanese dude commented on my YouTube saying that I shouldn't pronounce it Watanabe. So apologies to all my Japan watchers. Or watcher, probably have like one, that dude. So sorry, mate. You know, ignorance is bliss, right? If you're not from the place, you don't know. So thanks for letting me know. I'll try and remember it, but I've got bad memory. But anyway, Kana Watanabe won via decision in a very, very frustrating match for anyone who bet Alejandro Lara like me. So I'll tell you my read on the fight, my read on the bet, why I made the bet. So Alejandro Lara was clearly a level above on the feet. I think she showed that. She dropped Watanabe in the second round, which she ultimately lost that round. But she dropped her with a hard elbow. She hurt her badly in about 30 seconds of round one. She was clearly a level above on the feet, you know, and obviously that's the reason I bet her. Obviously, there was many other factors. I'll get into them. But one of the main reasons was because she was just clearly a level above on the feet. I'm obviously happy with that read. I mean, it was very easy to tell that, so it's not like I'm overly happy with the read because it was just super clear on tape. It was super clear when you watch the tape that she was a level above on the feet, in my opinion. But at least she was. I wasn't, you know, dreaming it. It's always good to see your reads come to light, but I mean that was a pretty clear one on my end. And Kana Watanabe is obviously a judoka as well, so I mean it was pretty easy read. So Look, this was a bad bet. The reason it was a bad bet is because first it was minus 175, right? So that's 63% chance. I gave this girl like about a 70% chance of winning, I think. She's not going to win the fight 70 times. She probably wins the fight about 50 times, man. So if these guys fight, you know, 100 times, she probably only wins half of them because her IQ wasn't there to like stick and move. She tried it a little bit, but she's very wild. She didn't look like that to me on tape. I guess because she was so scared of the takedowns and because she got dominated when she got put to the ground a couple of times, even though she did get a few sweeps. Maybe she was just worried and she just looked way more wild than I had seen on tape. The first round was absolutely hilarious. First of all, she dances to the ring, right? Probably gasses out, you know, like Deontay Wilder. She dances to the ring, takes about 15 minutes to get to the cage, I should say. And then she hurts Watanabe in about 30 seconds and runs into her 100 miles per hour, falls on the floor, and then, you know, Watanabe jumps in her guard. I couldn't believe what I was watching. I was like, oh my God, this chick lost her mind. Maybe she just wanted to get her out of there ASAP, but come on, girl. I mean, like, take your time. This is a judoka. You don't run into judokas, you know? Haven't you learned from the Ronda Rousey era? Anyway, it was the first round, first 30 seconds, so I cut her some slack. She was a little bit patient after that, but she did seem a little bit gassed. I thought she'd be able to do better, not necessarily defending her takedowns, but like sticking on the outside. She wasn't really able to do it. And I did think she'd be a bit more calm under pressure. So, yeah, I don't like this bet. I'm gonna say this is a bad bet from me. Not too much more analysis as to why it was a bad bet, but I guess that's really it. Because I thought she'd be less wild, which she wasn't. And I just thought she'd do better at sticking at distance. And I probably thought she was a little bit stronger than she was. Although I'm not going to say Lara wasn't strong because she sweeped Watanabe, right? She was able to reverse position. She was able to defend a couple of takedowns in that first round at least, or earlier on in the fight. So I don't think it was necessarily because she was so much weaker than Watanabe, but there was a multitude of different reasons why she lost the fight. And at the end of the day, it was a close fight, right? Like, she hurt her badly. I think one judge, was this a split decision? I think this was a split decision. Yeah, this was a split decision. So one judge gave it to Lara, and I don't agree with it, but the reason is because she dropped her with an elbow, right, in the second round, and then she basically got laid on for the rest of that second round, right? But I understand giving it to Watanabe because she was trying to do some damage. She didn't do much damage in the second round. She did get dropped, though. But, yeah, I agree with the decision. But, is what it is. If I bet Lara at plus money, I wouldn't hate it because I'm saying this fight's probably about 50-50. If I'm saying this fight's about 50-50, then at minus 175, I was way off. So, yeah, I think that's a bad bet from me. The next fight was Usman Nurmagomedov versus Mike Hamill. This was a fight I kind of went a bit in depth on, right? On my pre-prediction podcast when I broke down the main card of Bellator 255. And if you don't know, every single week I break down all the fights on the prelim or the main card. It really depends. Last week, I done the Bellator main card. This week for the UFC, I might break down the Bellator main card, and the UFC prelim card. I could break down the UFC main card. I don't know. If you want my breakdowns and my bets for all of the fights, you can sign up on my website, lucrativemmabetting.com. Link is in my bio, on my Twitter, on my YouTube, all of that stuff. But every week I come on and I break down the fights on a prelim or a main card. And I did that. And I spent a lot of time talking about this fight because I wanted to give a lot of credence into Mike Hamill. I said Mike Hamill was a tough guy. He's 7-4, but he's definitely going to give Usman a fight. But I just see Usman winning it. So it was hard for me. Actually, it was kind of easy for me not to bet this fight. But I saw a lot of people betting Mike Hamill. And I do respect you guys for betting Mike Hamill. But it was just one of them fights that I felt like the line's off. Technically, if you read sports betting books, right? If you listen to professional sports bettors from America and, if you read the manual, Sports Betting 101, you read the manual, it's going to tell you in page 1 that I should bet Mike Hamill at this line because the line is off. But I just felt like even though the line's off a little bit, I'm throwing my money away. Mike Hamill's not going to win this fight, man. He's just not going to do it. And at the end of the day, he was dominated by Usman Nurmagomedov, right? Usman absolutely dominated him for 3 rounds. Now, he made it tough and he made it gritty, but he got pieced up badly, man. Every single one of his limbs must be killing him. His face is bust up, his belly, ribs. He got destroyed by multiple strikes, right? But he made it tough. He gave him a good fight, as in, he didn't go away. But what damage did he put on Usman? 0. Virtually 0, right? He did nothing. So even though we saw that the line was wide, you're kind of throwing your money away. Now, if you bet these plus 650s, one of them probably will cash. But as Z's MMA said on his recap, you have to be betting every single one of these in order to justify betting on one, right? Because if you miss just one plus 650, you could be destroying your whole profit on that bet. Because if the one that you miss wins and the next 5 that you bet on lose, then you've just lost 5 in a row and you've missed the one that would have covered you for the 5 losses you've had, which you are going to have if you're betting on plus 650s. They're not going to win often. It's only once in a while. So if you want to bet Mike Hamill, you got to bet them all. But the thing is, if kind of true, but if you use that excuse, then you kind of have to say that if you're betting on that, you have to bet on every single fight on the card, right? You have to bet on every bet ever. So it's just a weird position to be in, because if you say that, you have to bet on every plus 650 to make it worth it, which is true, you're kind of also saying that you have to bet on every single fight on the card, on every single card ever, in order to take advantage of any value at all. Because value is value at the end of the day, whether they're plus 650 or plus 200. So, because we're not going to do that, the approach I take is just bet where you see value. Bet where you see value. Pick your spots. Obviously, maybe there was a little bit of value on Mike Hamill, but pick your spots. Picking your spots. That's basically the whole point of this. You have to pick your spots, right? But there's no shame if you bet Mike Hamill We need people like that in the game. That sounds so pretentious. I'm not trying to be like that at all. We need, the bookies need to be kept honest, right? Like if they're putting a line which is wrong, which this line was wrong, they need to be held accountable. But I'm not gonna be the one to hold them accountable on Mike Hamill against Usman Nurmagomedov. Put it that way, all right? And that's why I didn't bet on him. But if you watch my breakdown before the fight, I went quite deep on this fight, and I gave Mike Hamill a lot of props, and I still give him a lot of props. And I'm telling you this, Mike Hamill's got a future in the Bellator. He's got a future in MMA, even as an almost 500 fighter. And I will look to bet Mike Hamill in certain matchups for sure in the future. But I thought Usman looked really good. I thought he showed us some stuff that we haven't seen from him before. He showed us that he can go 3 hard rounds against a guy that won't go away, that's putting that wrestling pressure on him. He showed excellent takedown defense. He showed very good scramble ability. He actually even showed more in his striking than I've seen, a more diverse striking output that was consistently kept up throughout each round. It was a very good performance from Usman Nurmagomedov. I know a lot of people are saying he's a fade. Maybe he's a fade when he gets into the top 10, top 5. But, man, he's a very good fighter, man. Put some respect on that boy's name. I don't know how old he is, but he's a good fighter, man. And he hasn't used his wrestling. So I would like to see his wrestling, I saw it a couple times on the regional scene. He dominated with it. Nothing like Khabib's, not on that level. He still was able to dominate with it. So I'd like him to, mix in some takedowns in his game. I think that would open up his striking even more, which it doesn't even need to be because it's very good already. A lot of people shitting on Usman Nurmagomedov here. He's a very good fighter. Okay, he's a very good fighter. I'll tell you that now. I'm not going to say he's a future lightweight champion of Bellator. Not ready to say that. But top 10, top 5, 100% he's going to mix it and he's going to get some wins in there. And look, he could improve. He's only 12-0. He's training with some unbelievable fighters. He's training with Khabib regularly. Khabib still trains. He's training with, Magomedov. Magomedov. I know he's a bit smaller than him. Still training with him. Training with Abubakar Nurmagomedov. Average-ish, decent fighter in the UFC. They've got all them Dagestani boys down there. They've got a solid team. So shout out to Usman. Shout out to Mike Hamill. That was a good fight there. It was pretty entertaining. Only in the fact that we just got to see Usman, we got to see Usman's skills. That was really why it was entertaining. It wasn't like it was a war, entertaining war or anything. But you know what I mean. The next fight was Tyrell Fortune versus Jack May. Tyrell Fortune, complete domination, round 1, TKO. Basically left off where he started in the first match that these two had. This was a rematch. The reason why that first match was cancelled and the reason why a rematch was booked was because it was a no contest, because Tyrell Fortune needed him in the balls. Jack May couldn't continue. So, I actually bet on Tyrell Fortune here. I believe there was value in his minus 650 line that we got. I know it sounds crazy saying that because at heavyweight, and, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I just thought it was such a clear win for Tyrell that I just wanted to boost my parlay up more. I'm open to that discussion. I'm open to being called out on that. It's possible. Confirmation bias is a real thing. At heavyweight, it's very hard to say someone is justified at being capped at minus 650. If I hadn't seen these two fight before, I probably wouldn't justify that. We saw them fight before. We saw how it will go in the wrestling. Tyrell did exactly the same as the first round of the first fight. This time, he didn't knee him in the balls, and he was able to TKO him shortly after. Probably one of the cleanest wins of the whole card. And, I was happy to have an easy parlay booster there. And that ended up cashing a parlay with Magomedov. So a huge chalk parlay there for me, which came off. And yeah, Bellator, that's what it calls for. Each card calls for something different. A lot of times Bellator does call for a bit of a parlay, So anyway, we cashed that there. Not too much to say about that one. He did what he was meant to do. The next fight was the co-main event. I got some shit to say about this. Let me piss some people off, right? And obviously, I'm being facetious. I don't mean to piss anyone off. I'm just saying that because I think I probably will piss people off. Look, why is people coming out, right, saying they're so clear on who won this fight? Man, shut your ass up. This fight was close as fuck. It could have gone any way. Don't ever give me that it was clear this, clear that. It was clear for your bet. That's why it was clear. You could tell the people who bet Neiman Gracie, right? Because they said Neiman Gracie won. It was so funny. On Twitter, you just knew who had a bet just by looking at who they thought won, right? It was the weirdest fight, right? You can't clearly call this. Big John McCarthy said it was clear for Neiman Gracie. Like, give it a rest, Big John. Like, what are you talking about? Did you get paid to say that? Did they want Neiman Gracie to win this fight because of the name, Bellator? Probably not, because, the judging, it went to Jackson. But this fight was close, man. Like, and then also the Jason Jackson bettors, a lot of people saying, and if you're watching this, Z, I'm not only talking about you, because I've mentioned you a few times in the stream, and I know you said this on your stream, so I'm not talking directly about you. You are included. There was multiple people who said this, right? And I don't really agree with it because we don't know. And that was that if Jackson didn't scrape his eye on the cage, right, then he would have dominated the fight. Or not dominated, he would have clearly won. Like, okay, maybe. Maybe not. Like, you don't know. You don't know how much damage it, you don't know how much he could see out of that eye. Like, the thing is, it's hard to say, like, what would have happened, right? It's really hard to say. Like, how about this angle? If Jason Jackson didn't damage the eye, you're saying that I would have fought much better, would have been able to, be more clear. Maybe would have fought less tentatively then, right? Maybe would have fought less tentatively, more aggressive. Maybe could have got taken down then and then subbed by Gracie, or Gracie would have won. I'm not saying that would have happened. I'm just saying that it's so hard to say this would have happened if this, right? Like, you can never really say that, right? You can make an assumption, but like, just to come out and say, Jackson, yeah, definitely the right side there. It's complete domination if he didn't get his eye bust, or clear win if Jackson doesn't get his eye hit. He got his eye hit and still won. Yeah, maybe, all right, but maybe not. Like, we really don't know. It's very hard to say that. This is sports betting, and you can't really make assumptions like that, in my opinion. Again, no one specifically, but I saw some people with some wild stuff in that fight. So I think my breakdown of this fight was pretty spot on. I said it was a 50-50 fight. I really believe it was a 50-50 fight. I think we kind of saw that. I feel like if these guys fight 100 times, I feel like the fight goes 50-50 most of them times. The thing about that injury as well was that Neiman Gracie had top position, right? And he actually stopped beating on Jackson from the top. He was landing blows from top. Jackson was laid out on the bottom. And the reason he stopped landing blows was because Jackson was complaining to the referee, right? And then, like, he waited for a bit. It was so weird. Like, the round was still going on. And then he's like, and he was talking to Jackson. I don't know what he was saying. He's probably like, are you all right? Should I carry on? But he stopped. Like, credit to Neiman Gracie, because if that was a lot of other people, they'd just start pounding right then. And the ref probably would have stopped it, and it would have either gone to a no contest or Jackson would have won by TKO, right? So credit to Gracie for just, like, allowing Jackson to basically get a break, even though the ref didn't call for a stop in the action. And then also later on in that round, like 30 seconds to a minute later, Jackson's still complaining, and they break the action up, which is a bit mad, right? Like, they just from Jackson's speech, they break the action up, and it stops a lot. It stops the flow of the fight, and then they put them back in that position. But it wasn't the same after that. Then the other argument on Jackson's side is that position wouldn't have happened if Jackson didn't scrape his eye in the octagon, but he did, right? So it's just weird. Jason Jackson basically called his own timeout while he was mounted by a Gracie, right? And so it's just a weird fight. Like, I don't think you can come at it from such a heavy angle, like, what if that, or what if that? Because, you can say, Gracie would have definitely rid out the whole first round in top position if they didn't break in the action, if Jackson didn't get his bearings about him, if he wasn't able to think without being punched in the head of what he's going to do when they get put in that position. And the first round actually won Jackson the fight, because the second round was Gracie's and the third round was Jackson's. And the first round, it came down to the first round, right? Which Gracie won on one judge's scorecard. So if they didn't break it up, you could easily say that Jackson would have won that first round, right? But then on the Gracie would have won that first round. But on the Jackson side, you can easily say that, well, if he didn't scrape his eye, that wouldn't have happened, and Jackson would have won the first round on the feet. So because there's so many what ifs, just don't say you're nothing, you know? So yeah, I just wanted to get it out there but the thing, it happens like that all the time, right? I'm sure I do it as well. If I have a bet, like, and something happens, I'm all for my bet, you know? Like when Peter Yan, like I justify my bet, right? And you have to, because at the end of the day, you have to have a solid mind in this game. So you kind of have to have confirmation bias in a way. You kind of have to gas yourself up and make yourself believe that you are right. And you are, like, that's what I do. I'm telling you now. Like, I'll tell you now, because you have to, because you're making a decision about who's going to win a fight. Like, you're making a decision on, like, you have to stick to your word. You have to be like, yeah, I'm right. And sometimes you have to just gas yourself up and gas narratives up. But it just seemed to me like if you're on the Gracie side or the Jackson side, you can't be so clear or confident or happy with your bet, in my opinion. But that's just my opinion. So it doesn't really matter. Anyway, bets I had on this card, I had Neiman Gracie to win via decision at plus 600, 0.35 units. So I thought that definitely could have gone our way. I completely understand it going Jackson's way. Zero arguments from me. Literally no argument. I had no idea. You know, when it went to the scorecards, I was like, wow. Like, I mean, what a shit show of a fight. The first round was mental because Gracie had him flattened out, pounding him. Then the fight got stopped, and then Jackson got like 2 or 3 takedowns in that same round, right? So what do you class more, the 3 takedowns, which Gracie got up from, or when he had him sprawled out and when Jackson was calling for a break in the action? Like, who do you give it for, right? And the judges don't even know why he's calling for a break in action. If he's calling for a break in action because Jackson's on top, Gracie's on top of him, pounding him, then Jackson should have been, you know, disqualified. And if you're a judge, you're like, oh, you know, Gracie is in a dominant position here. But if it's because he scraped his eye, which it was, then the judges, how are they going to judge that? You're going to have to be like, oh, we'll just pretend that he isn't mounting him now because he scraped his eye. Such a weird fight, such a weird occurrence. That's why I don't think you can be so hot on either side. So congratulations to anyone who bet Jason Jackson above plus 100, because I believe that was value. And I wrote down on my notes, if anyone gets to plus 150, I will bet it. But what I should have done was say, if anyone gets to plus 122, I should bet it. Because, I mean, I'm still getting an edge there if I'm calling it a 50-50 fight. So I'll remember that in the future, that if anyone's above plus 122, I should bet it, as opposed to needing it to be plus 150 and needing a 10% edge. I should only need a 5% edge, right? So that's definitely something I'm going to learn. And that would have meant I would have bet Jackson, but I would have been super sweaty throughout that. I'm kind of happy with the way I played it at Neiman Gracie via decision at plus 600. I mean, if that cashes, I'm laughing a huge night. So, but it is what it is. It's one of them things, you know. I to be honest, this year, I think I've had quite a lot of bad beats. There's been a few like lucky ones, but I know the bad beats always stick out more. But I know for a fact, just looking through my record, that I've had way more bad luck than good luck this year. But that's completely fine because I'm in it for the long haul. I've been in it for the long haul, and that means that good luck at some point is gonna, you know, creep its head, and obviously it has done at times as well. So yeah, but look, great fight. Jason Jackson definitely showed a lot in that fight. I'm happy he got the decision in a way because I like Jason Jackson a lot. I do like Neiman Gracie as well, but Jason Jackson, you know, he hurt his eye in the first round and still able to persevere through. So you have to give him some credit for that. And it was good to see him win. And hopefully he gets a shot at the title after the next welterweight title fight. You know, hopefully he gets the shot at the title once Douglas Lima fights maybe Amosov. You know, I don't know whether that is booked yet, but that would be good to see because I think Jason Jackson deserves it now. Definitely getting past someone like Neiman Gracie, who's a solid fighter, only lost to Rory McDonald. So shout out to Jason, shout out to Neiman, and yeah, it is what it is. The next fight is Patricio Pitbull versus Emmanuel Sanchez. Great fight here. I mean, not really, just great showcase by Pitbull. So I already had a winning night wrapped up here. I was in profit plus 277 units when this fight came along. So I was free rolling and I had a bet on Emmanuel Sanchez to win. Half a unit shot, very small shot. I didn't want to take too much of a big shot because I respect Pitbull a lot. But I did think that, you know, Emmanuel Sanchez at plus 215, there was some value on that line. And, you know, he got stopped in round 1. So I ended up profiting plus 2.2 units on the night, which was, you know, I was happy with that. But Patricio Pitbull, man, I mean, he drops Emmanuel with that left hook, you know, which is what caught him in the first fight a couple of times. And I did say that on my breakdown, that he's there for the hooks, right? Which is Pitbull's like one of his best shots, probably the best shot Pitbull has. So, you know, but Emmanuel Sanchez being put away in the first round, like I wouldn't really see it. Emmanuel's never been put away before. He doesn't get put away a lot in their first fight. You know, he didn't get put away. And he looked, you know, he did almost get put away in their first fight, kind of. He had him hurt bad in the 5th round, Pitbull did. But, you know, he looked good in that first fight. And this was a great fight, man. I mean, sorry, the first fight was a great fight. So I did think that we could see something of the same. And if we saw something of the same in their first fight, if you're giving me plus 215, I'm betting that all day. Now, can I learn anything from this as a bet? Am I going to call it a bad bet? Probably a bad bet, man, just because Pitbull's elite, you know. But I don't know, man. It's like I saw the fight before, right? I saw this fight a couple of years ago. And Emmanuel's got better since then, in my opinion. So has Pitbull, but so has Emmanuel. So how are you going to... It's hard to cap who's got better more. You know, you can't really, because you don't see them in there together. Emmanuel dominated in his last fight against Weichel, someone who he lost to before. So, like, I definitely thought Emmanuel had improved, leveled up, and so has Pitbull. So I thought if we're getting something similar to the first fight, you know, and you're giving me plus 215, then... great bet. And, you know, I did have a rule, maybe don't bet against like these elite fighters like Patricio Pitbull, Volkanovski and stuff. But I saw the fight before. I've seen the first fight and it was so close. So, I mean, I don't, you know, like it's hard for me to go, oh, I can't bet against this guy. I saw this guy potentially almost get beat by the guy I'm betting on. So, like, is it really that, oh, I shouldn't be betting against Pitbull? I don't know, man. Like, I'm not super unhappy with it, you know. Again, we have to think of if this fight plays out 100 times. If this fight plays out 100 times, does he win better than the plus 215 line indicates? Probably not. It probably was a bad bet. He probably doesn't win better than 32% of the time. He probably doesn't. He probably wins 30% of the time. It was probably a bad bet. Probably no value in that bet. But I thought there was when I bet it, so it is what it is. Yeah. Not much to say about this. I can't wait to see Pitbull fight AJ McKee. I think that's going to be an absolute banger. I don't have a lean for that fight. I'll have to do tape on that fight. I know AJ McKee definitely seems legit, but he's young. He's 23. Pitbull's 33. He's been in the game for a much longer time, got much more experience. That might pull him through this time. It might be like a case of Ngannou versus Stipe. Like Pitbull might and this is just completely rambling bullshit off the top of my head, right? But I mean, that's what these streams are for. I just spout out random thoughts that I have. So, you know, it could be that Patricio Pitbull is able to like out hustle him over 5 rounds or, you know, maybe stop him or whatever. But maybe AJ McKee will learn from that in a couple of years, come back and like take out Pitbull via submission. I mean, that would be a good storyline, right? Because AJ McKee's very young. He's very young. And going in against an elite level fighter like Pitbull, I know AJ McKee's had quite a lot of fights. He's like 20-0 or something, but he's still on. How is he 23? That's a bit mad. I think he is 23 because I read that the other day, and I think he might be 23. AJ McKee. He's 25 years old, right? So not as young as I thought, but still 25 is young, man. I mean, Patricio Pitbull's been in the game for a long, long time. Patricio Pitbull has had almost double the fights of AJ McKee. He's got 36 fights, you know. AJ's on like 20 or something. So much higher level competition from Patricio. It could be one of them ones where he outmaneuvers him, but it could just be AJ's time, man. By the time the fight comes around, he's obviously going to be slightly older, you know, like a couple months older. So AJ McKee might be able to get him out of there, but I mean, it's going to be a tough fight. AJ McKee's a lot bigger than him. I will say that, at least height and reach anyway, but so was Emmanuel Sanchez. You know, Emmanuel Sanchez had a lot of height and reach on him and took him out in round 1. So what a fight that is. I can't wait for that fight. Overall on the night, we go plus 2.2 units. We win again. That's 5 out of the last 6 weekends we've won. And the only one we lost, we broke even, really. We didn't really even lose. We lost 0.1 unit. So, yeah, we are on a good roll at the moment. If you want to sign up and get all of my bets along with the sports betting training courses, go to lucrativemmabetting.com. Other than that, I'll be back in the week with some content for UFC Vegas 23, Marvin Vettori versus Kevin Holland. I do have a play on that card, which is over 5 units. It's not Marvin Vettori. It's a bigger than 5 unit play. And I'm actually undefeated on over 5 unit plays in my lifetime. So if you want to sign up, it's probably worth signing up just for that bet. You probably get your money's worth for that bet alone, as I'm undefeated on them. I did say that last week when I had an 8.5 unit bet. I said, if you want to sign up, you probably should sign up this week and you'll probably get your money's worth just with that bet alone. That was Omar Morales, and he won a 30-27 decision on all 3 judges' scorecards. So we've got the same again. We've got a 5.7 unit bet, and we've got the fighter I've bet on in a parlay as well. So we're risking about 8 units on this fighter overall, and I think it's warranted. I think that the fighter will dominate. So I can't wait to see it. Thanks for watching the stream, and thanks for watching the replay if you're watching it. And I'll see you in the week with some more content for the UFC and for possibly for Bellator as well.